Now, the people that rule the world, in effect, what is their ultimate objective? You mentioned a centralized police state. Explain this.
Well, if you are a few and you want to control the mass of people, then you have to centralize decision-making. The more diversity of decision-making you have in any area of life, the less control any central point is going to have over that. So what's been happening, and this doesn't go back a few years or a few decades, this has been unfolding for thousands of years, as these bloodline families have moved incessantly forward to this end. And if you look at the way societies are structured, you can see this. You look at the way corporations and business and banking has gone, you can see this. For instance, there was a time when you had a tribal situation in the world where the people in the tribe, the relative few, were making decisions about what happened in their society. These tribes were eventually brought together under something called nations, and suddenly a few people are now dictating to what were before many, many, many tribes, and dictating from the center what was going to happen, and laws and what have you. We're now, certainly in Europe, Kevin, well on the way to a centralized dictatorship in Europe called the European Union. And what is that doing? That's now bringing the nations together. So all those nations are now going to be and are dictated from a central point. Something like 75 to 80% of laws that are rubber stamped, because that's all it is, going through the Westminster Parliament in London, originate from unelected bureaucrats in Brussels. The idea, of course, is to have this super state structure in the Americas. Also in Africa, we now have a African Union, which took over from the Organization of African Unity. We have the pressure to and moves to bring about an Asia-Pacific Union. And these unions are centralizing power to dictate to the nation states in their area. Above that, and this is where it's moving, is to create a world government which would dictate to the super-states, which would dictate to the countries, and they want to break the countries up into regions eventually, and the maps exist to prove it, and they want a world central bank to dictate global finance from the center, a world currency, which eventually would be a single cashless currency. They want a world army to impose the will of the world government on any area of the world that doesn't want to accept the dictates, and they want a microchip population connected to a global computer, and we're getting closer to that all the time. So this is the structure, and when you know, A, the structure they want, and B, the techniques they use to mass manipulate the collective mind to get there, which are creating the problem, telling the people a version of the problem that suits you, i.e. blame someone else or something for what you've actually done. And then when the people say, do something, this can't go on, you then openly offer the solutions to the problems you've created with changes in legislation and society which advance your Orwellian state. I call that technique, problem, reaction, solution. Swine flu followed by the vaccine, mass vaccination is problem, reaction, solution. 9/11, blame it on Arab terrorists that couldn't fly aircraft, and then introduce the war on terror and the invasion of Afghanistan and the invasion of Iraq, which was as a result of this war on terror. They wouldn't have got it through otherwise. And these are problem, reaction, solutions. And the other one technique is the totalitarian tiptoe, I call it, and that's where you're at A, you know you're going to Z, but if you go in too big a leap, the change is so fast that people look up from the game shows and say, what's going on? So you go from A to B to D to E as fast as you can, but not so fast that you cause people to look up and ask questions about what's going on. And so these coordinates of the structure they want and the techniques they use to get us there, once you know them, then you can see the world in a completely different way and read it in a totally different way. No longer are things happening in the world random and unconnected. You can see that they are connected to a very clear journey forward, if you like, towards this centralized superstate that we are, global superstate that we're talking about.